I'm late to the party, but Bogren Digital just dropped 2 new amp knobs. It's the Amp Knob Ubermetal Titans of Tone. They have the BDE-120, which, if you do a little research, looks kind of a lot like this, right? The ENGL Savage 120. And the other one, if you don't recognize it right away, is this bad boy, the Diezel VH4. At least that's what I think. So those are 2 boutique amps that I actually really like the sound of, but you saw how much they are. They're pretty expensive, but Bogren always does a good job with their amp modeling technology. So let's dive in, take a look underneath the hood of these 2 new plugins, see what's going on in the inner workings a little bit, and then we're gonna pull them into a session, see how they sound, and see if they're usable in the context of like a big rock metal production. Now, if you make rock or metal music, in the description I have a link to download my free rock and metal mixing cheat sheet. So there's a bunch of my favorite go-to starting positions for EQs, filters, compressors for all the different instruments in a rock and metal song. Definitely go and download a copy in the description. Okay, just a quick reminder, if this is your first time watching one of these deep dive tutorials, this is a plugin called Plugin Doctor. Allows me to look at what is exactly going on with these plugins in real time, so we can turn knobs and see how frequency response changes, maybe how harmonics are generated. And this is a really useful tool for us to figure out if this plugin was designed correctly, and if it's doing some cool stuff, maybe we can figure out what the heck it's doing. Okay, so this is a frequency response of this plugin. So this is the BDE-120. This is just the default setting. You can see that right out the gate there is a high pass filter. It appears to be rolling off around 170 hertz, which is interesting because that's really deep into what people would consider like the warmth of the guitar. So it's actively rolling off, and maybe this is part of the reason why it sounds so tight, around 180 hertz. And then we get another steep roll off a little bit around 100 hertz right here. So this looks like maybe this is some sort of high pass filter, and this might be just a speaker response or something. We also can see that there is a dip at around 700 hertz. So this is likely clearing out some of the muddy frequencies. So there's like a 5 or 6 dB dip right here between 500 and about 900 hertz. And then it stays relatively flat. And then we start getting a roll off again right around 1.6K, which is, again, kind of shocking because when people are working with amp sims, they are getting frequency responses that go all the way into like 12, 14K. There's been plenty of YouTube comments talking about why the heck do you roll off all of the air? You're ruining the guitar tone. But if we take a look at this, Jens is rolling stuff off like 1.6K. There is a big dip here. So this is like a 4 or 5 dB cut. So this might be to take some of the harshness out of the guitar. And then it looks like there's just a general like decrease in high frequency content all the way down to maybe around 6 or 7K. And then it kind of drops off. So that's really interesting because this kind of allows you to peek behind the curtain of, how Jens or whoever is designing these plugins, what they're doing to get this type of guitar tone. It's really kind of cool. Without the pedal engaged, we're getting a lot more low-end response, okay? So that roll-off and dips right here, that's gone when the pedal's out. So that's a high-pass filter primarily from the pedal. If we look at just the gain from the amp, I'm gonna actually need to zoom out of here a little bit. So actually, this is interesting because as I zoom out, we're noticing there's a change in the frequency response. Yeah, so this basically, the harder you drive a signal into this amp, the more it's gonna start distorting and changing the tonal characteristics, which is what a guitar amp does. So it's kind of cool that it's captured, on this level. We can see how everything's changing. And actually, if we zoom in, look at this. This is moving around. So this is some sort of like noise that they modeled maybe, or just some oscillations. I don't know. This is very strange, but it seems to be somewhat rhythmic, right? It's like a repeating pattern. So I think what this is doing is just kind of adding a little bit of variance to just kind of make the distortion have more of a, a real feel, since you're not going to get a very static sound on an actual analog amp. So this is not like normal traditional DSP code here, unless the DSP is just to make these little things wiggle back and forth and I'm being misled. Let's check out the other channel. So there's Clearly a big difference in gain when we switch these channels. Makes sense. That's how the actual amp works as well. So in the original channel, we saw there was a big cut out between 1200 and 2K. And then on this orange channel, it's a little bit smoother through that region, but we get a general scooping of for everything from like maybe 300 hertz all the way up to 1.8K. So this is going to have probably a little bit more of a scoop sound, whereas this is going to be a little bit more mid-rangey in your face, and we also have a lot of these lower, thicker frequencies popping in there. If we crank up the gain, this is really cool. So we get a flattening of the frequency response, and then we also start getting a dip here. And I'm thinking that's an artistic decision by the people at Bogren to keep this from getting like harsh, because as this is cranking up in gain, we're going to get a lot of harmonics from our guitars. It's going to start saturating this region, and our ears are really sensitive to like between 1 and 4K. And the fact that, you know, as you hit right about here in this knob position, that it almost looks like an EQ is just kind of pulling this region down, right? You can kind of see it. The shape stays roughly the same, and it's getting sucked in. So I'm willing to bet that that was hand dialed in to make this thing sound really, really good and clean when the gain is like cranked on this thing. Really awesome. And then when we add that pedal, we're getting a big cut between like 2 and 3K, and also another big cut right around 4K. If we change the cab, we get a different impulse response. It's pretty similar, a little bit different. Looks like the vintage cab starts rolling off some high frequencies. If we do no cab, this is just the DSP now. So you can see it's wiggling, and the frequency response is changing like crazy as you get more and more distorted. And again, there might be some artistic EQ or something going on. All right, what about the harmonic structure? So here are the different harmonics. We can choose what we want our fundamental to be. So we're getting these series of harmonics. As we increase the gain, they become more and more. They're not super loud, but as we get higher gain, they're starting to get competitive with their fundamental, which is set to 60 hertz. So if we shift this up a little bit, you can see that we're getting different amplitudes for these harmonics depending on what order they are. So even order harmonics are lower than the odd. And as we get louder and louder, right, these relative changes are shifting. Yeah, this is all checking out. This is looking pretty good. We can see that there's a lot less higher order harmonics in the orange channel compared to the red channel. If we crank this up a little bit more, it's still the same situation. I think it's interesting that this bass line kind of runs off. I'm not sure what would have caused that. We don't see that on this. It stays nice and flat. And if you're just curious what the actual wave shaping looks like for this, here is the red channel. So this is supposed to be just a nice sine wave, so you can see the shape that the sine wave gets distorted into from going through this modeling. So there's some interesting dynamics processing and wave shaping that's going on here to cause this shape. And then as we increase the gain, we actually get some phase shift, which is kind of cool. And then it just gets obliterated at the end. All right, let's check out the other one. All right, so this is the BH4. Since we're already in the oscilloscope, let's just make some adjustments here, and we can overlay the shapes of the waveform. So if I crank this all the way, you can see the red is the BH4 and the purple is the BDE. So they have very different wave shapes. And this one has a lot of phase shift. But the shape stays relatively the same with the gain cranked, which is interesting. Let's get rid of the pedal and see if there's any differences. Wow, look at how clean it is when there's low gain. And then as we distort it, we get that cool little notch right in the beginning again. So what does the frequency response look like? We can see there's like a ton of bass without any gain. We have a roll off roughly around 100 hertz this time. This could just be cabinet resonance. Let's get rid of that and see what it looks like without the cabinet IR. Okay, no, that's actually in the amp itself. So the amp is rolling off right around 100 hertz all the way down. And then we get a little bit of a cut from 230 to 1K here. So this again probably is just kind of cleaning out some of the mud. And then we start rolling off pretty hard around 4,500 hertz. So 4.5K, we're getting quite a bit of roll off. So that's for the third channel. If we start driving the gain, again, we have this like oscillating behavior. I wonder if this is the IRDX technology that they're talking about. There we go. So as we start getting a higher and higher gain, our frequency response starts flattening out. So it's going to get a little bit more mid-heavy in your face. So again, what this tells me is that the input gain is going to be very important to get right. So make sure your gain staging is reasonable, because if you feed this plugin too hard, you're changing the EQ shape, you're changing the gain structures, the harmonics, everything. Just something to be aware of. All right, if we go to harmonic analysis, ooh, super saturated with harmonics, even at the lowest gain settings. That's crazy. So, and they're all pretty much the same height. So the odd and even are going to be coming in around the same. So this tells me that this is probably going to be a much more aggressive texture tone than what we saw before. Yeah. And if we go to channel 4, it's also a very similar story. There's a change in the high end here, so it's starting to roll off a little bit. If we start adding the gain, we can see that we're getting a lot more saturation to higher order harmonics, so it's going to get brighter, sizzlier. And we're not really seeing a ton of like aliasing from what I can tell. Yeah, this is super low. You're not going to hear any of this. But the pedaling doesn't change harmonic structure too much. It does kind of boost up the top end a little bit. If we put the guitar cabs back in, we can see that the modern cab, so there's a little bit of EQ shaping here, and then it's a little bit more aggressive roll-off. If we go to the vintage cab, the top end is a little bit more attenuated. But we'll definitely do a live demo of that to see what that sounds like. This is a session I got from Alan Laskow from this band called Every Hour Kills. This is Reawaken. You can actually get these tracks. I'll put a link to their Bandcamp page where you can download everything. So it's kind of cool. You get to see how a modern metal song is produced, and it sounds pretty awesome. So here is just a rough mix that I did of this track without any of the guitars.
Hate yourself. Wanna kill you to say what you want from me.
Yeah, I know the kick drum's kind of loud, whatever. It's a rough mix. All right, give me a break. All right, so let's check out this plugin on these guitar DIs, okay? So here's what the guitar DI sounds like without this. Let me just dial this up. Actually, no, we're gonna have it the exact default settings. So to set it back to default, you just double click on it. All right, so here's what it sounds like when you just load the plugin up. Don't do anything else. Here we go. Oh. That sounds amazing. I just don't know what they do. It's not fair because it feels good. Like you get the low grain, like on the edge of breakup stuff right here. And it just is exactly like how I would dial in a real guitar amp. Let's listen without the pedal. So it really just doesn't do a whole lot to the tone, but it definitely gives the top end a little bit more grind, a little bit more air. It also tightens up those flubby low mids that we get without the pedal. Man, this is sounding really good. Let's listen to what it sounds like if we use the same settings on both the guitar DIs. It's not fair. Let me link these two channels so I can change this in real time and they'll both update. Go here and go to link selected channels, and then we'll have it link the inserts. So now when I dial one around, they're both moving. Cool. So heavy. That sounds pretty good. Apparently, the link feature does not work for the cab, which is interesting in Cubase. See? It should be the same. Let's just listen to one of these and see what the two cab models sound like quickly. Yeah, so the vintage cab is just really rolled off in that top end. I don't know, that modern cab sounds pretty sweet though. All right, let's listen to the other one, the Diezel. This is something I'm really excited about. Let's hear what the guitars sound like as I dial this in real time. It sounds so good. So let me show you the importance of getting your gain structuring right, because listen to how the distortion changes when I change the input level. Right, super clean. So what this means is if your DI tracks are like normalized to 0, like really loud like this, you're not going to be able to get any clean headroom out of this plugin, because I bet it's going to be kind of distorted right away. Yep, see? So keep an eye on this, because if you drive it too hard, the clipping light does come in. Right here, that little red thing, that's an indication you might be driving a little bit too hard. But if you want to squeeze out a little bit extra gain, you can drive that harder and probably get a little bit more of like an over-the-top distortion, but just be careful because these things have like a ton of distortion as it is. Oh, also the channel 3 and 4 does not link correctly in Cubase, which is a bit of a bummer. The knobs do, the pedal does, but 3 and 4 don't. And neither do power. Dang it. Oh, this is kind of a cool thing. If you look right here, look at that animation with the tubes glowing. Well done, Bogren. Wait a minute, hold on. That is kind of cool. So that little detail makes me so happy. When you turn this knob on and off, the level, the gain kind of ramps in and out, just like in a real guitar amp. If you turn it on, the level kind of swells in as these tubes start getting their electricity. I know it's a subtle thing, but like these are the kind of details that people that actually care about trying to make something sound as real as possible will do to their amp sim. So that's awesome. Way to go, guys. Let's hear what this sounds like in the context of the song. So we'll start, throw the pedal on, channel 3, here we go. Oh, channel 4 is so mean. Wow. Yeah, that sounds good. So what I'm going to do now is switch between the BDE-120 and the BH4. All right, here we go. Awaken eyes, are they ready for this? I was somebody, can't you say? Awaken eyes, can you cover the truth? I can be anything you dream. It's all in vain, you've shown up. Awaken eyes, are they ready for this? I was somebody, can't you say? Awaken eyes, can you cover the truth? I can be anything you dream. It's all in. So the BH4 has a little bit more thickness to it, but the actual gain structure of these two amps sounds pretty similar to me. The BDE-120 has a little bit more air and top and sizzle to it, and a little bit more of a scoop sound, in my opinion. Whereas the BH4 sounds a little bit thicker, and maybe a little bit more density in the mids. So there you have it. That's the new Amp Knob Ubermetal plugins that were just released. And just so you're aware, I'm not sponsored by this video. They just make tools that I think make my life a lot easier when I'm mixing. So that's why I made the video. And If you're looking to pick up other stuff that might not be on sale, you can use my promo code RAYTOWN to grab a discount on your next order. So what did you think? Did these plugins live up to the hype? Did you like the BDE-120 more, or did you like the BH4 more? And if you think there are other amp sims that compete with how good these sound, let me know as well. Don't forget, I have a Rocket Metal mixing cheat sheet in the description. You can download that for free. I'm Bobby Balo, the mixing master engineer at Raytown Productions. I'll see you in the next video.